That's right. And you're let him know.
Important table over here. Very important table over here. You got to make that. I need to look down here over we had good start coming up with we trained this year. It was well, sometimes
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all. Whoever had on the microphone for me today, that's such a blessing. Thank you so much, precious Blogwise. What a beautiful group of people. This is such a treat. This every Thursday has just gotten ever better and ever better. All these beautiful, smart people filling the room, and all of the wonderful laughter and conversation. I mean, it fills my heart and soul, and I just can't tell you how wonderful it is. And from the bottom of my heart, I want to welcome you to the Rotary Club of Tyler. I am Pamela Walters, the 101st president. I'm very proud to say that. And today's going to be very special. We have a magnificent speaker. I know you've all heard of Leadership Tyler for years, and probably everybody knows what it is, but for those of you that don't know about it, Smittee's going to give us a real treat of a presentation. But first of all, make sure your cell phones are turned off, okay? So we don't want anybody in trouble. And if you would help thank our pianist today, Dr. Karen McBee. Thank you so much. She played one of my very favorite songs early on, and I was trying not to dance out in the lobby. Okay, David Jones, are you here? If you will stand, he's going to lead in the national anthem.
Join me as we do the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleam? Blue stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we once were so gallantly streamed, and the rocket's red glare of bursting in air gave proof to the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that
Thank you, David. He has a wonderful voice. David Nichols, you can be making your way up here. I want to thank the great greeters for today, and I want you all to help me thank them. I know you recognize Robert Finney and Precious JB3, and they did a great job. It was so nice to walk in that front door. See their sweet faces. They were just wonderful. I like it when the guys greet. I think that's really special. Plus, I did 2-3 hugs. Okay. And now, if you'll stay standing, David is going to leave us. Dr. David.
Let's pray together. God, we thank you for our time to be together. We have many things on our mind, lots of concerns. We know that there's a lot of trouble in the world and disease and so many things that we concern us with our loved ones and so forth. God, we can just be thankful that we can be here today among friends, enjoy our company together, enjoy food together. You give us so many blessings in this country that we live. Thank you for it. Thank you for Rotary for what it does around the world and in this community. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
You may be seated.
Here's our friend Jim Whitaker.
Yes.
Lisa was asking me a while ago, most of y'all know I'm a dentist, where I extracted and filled teeth this morning. And they didn't pay me. So I don't know whether I'm retired or not.
Volunteering.
But I will tell you this for those of you. What's that?
That makes you retarded.
Oh,
Retarded.
Retired, yeah, that's right. But I want to just compliment the club and other clubs that are going to join us. The Sunrise Club has helped join us. You may have forgotten or not know, this club gave $2,000 over a year. COVID, ice storm kind of set us back. Well, now we're spending it. Matter of fact, next Friday we will spend it all. But we're getting to take care of such wonderful groups of people. Next Friday is Calvary Commission from Lindale. They're mostly recovering incarcerated people. The majority of them have been incarcerated. And they get jobs and so forth. But we do their team at Bethesda Clinic. And we just finished doing Sunshine Lighthouse. That's for women in recovery. Many of them from trafficking and all kinds of problems, mainly drugs. And this club has helped do that. So I just want to thank the club for knowing that it's been a very valuable asset. Any visiting Rotarians here today? Visiting people from another Rotary club? Anybody? Speak up.
Next week.
Okay. How about some here? We'll come back to y'all if we need to. What about some guests here today? Somebody bring a guest? No, you did. Way back there. Speak up.
Stand up, Mark.
Stand up, Mark. Yeah.
Mark out.
Hi, Mark. Tell us about yourself for a minute.
Live in Fuller. I'm the Eagle Club from Ark originally. So I'm from here and I own a business, Epic Office Solutions, here in Tyler, Texas.
Glad to have you, Mark. Anybody else? This is a great turnout with just one. What a deal. We're all here today.
Wait a minute. Tara, you don't get stand up and tell us about yourself. And text David on your way.
I just like sitting beside it.
So I've been before, but I am new to Tyler. I'm maybe for children. I'm a development director, and I'm looking forward to.
Awesome. Welcome, Tara. We're so glad you're here. Susan Campbell didn't stand because she is now, has been voted on by the board, and she is now an official member of our club. We will have her induction on down the road.
Yes, and Denise Miller too. She's
And
here.
Denise Miller too, yes. Hopefully y'all have met both of these women by now and realize for yourselves what tremendous attributes to this club they're going to be. So anyway, we're glad you're here today, and guests, you're so welcome, and we're so happy you're here. Please make yourself comfortable and know that you're always welcome to come back anytime. So with that, my very favorite person in the whole wide world, Precious Paul Gleiser. I wake up to him, go to bed with him.
We got that on tape.
I feel like talks to me at night. I mean, what a deal. Applauser.
You know, I'm just gonna let it go. Wow, today, the script is here. Today, the 29th of April, 1974, President Richard Nixon released the tapes that had come to light through recordings in the wake of the Watergate investigation. He said, and we quote, "I want there to be no question remaining that the president has nothing to hide in this matter," end quote. He would be forced on August the 8th. On the 30th of April in 1945, we alluded to this last week, after poisoning their two dogs, Adolf Hitler and his wife of 2 days, Eva Braun, committed suicide in the bunker located 55 feet below the German chancellery in Berlin. 8 days later, Germany issued an unconditional surrender to Allied forces. On the 1st of May, 1931, President Herbert Hoover flipped a ceremonial switch, and the lights came on the Empire State Building for the first time. The building employed as many as 3,600 workers a day during its construction during the depths of the Great Depression. A year later, the building was still 75% vacant. It would not make money until the early 1950s. It stood as the tallest building in the world until 1972, when the World Trade Center Twin Towers eclipsed it. On the 2nd of May, 1939, after suffering the first symptoms during the 1938 season, New York Yankees first baseman Lou Gehrig took himself out of the starting lineup of the Yankees' 9th game of the 1939 season, ending his consecutive games played record at 2,130. The malady that benched him is now called ALS, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. We simply call it Lou Gehrig's disease. On the 3rd of May, 1942, the Battle of the Coral Sea between the U.S. and Japanese naval forces began, continued for 4 days. It marked the first ever naval battle in which ships from the opposing navies would never see each other, relying on aircraft to carry the battle to the enemy. Although the Japanese technically won the battle, the victory was Pyrrhic. It came at such a high price that the Japanese Navy never fully recovered. Losses in the battle left them insufficiently strong to be able to prevail in the Battle of Midway 31 days later. On the 4th of May, 1979, after winning a majority for her Conservative Party the day before, Margaret Thatcher was asked by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II to form a government, and thus became the first female British Prime Minister. She would serve 3 terms and become the longest serving British Prime Minister in that nation's history. Finally, on Wednesday the 5th, 1961, U.S. astronaut Alan B. Shepard was launched from Launch Complex 5 in Cape Canaveral, Florida, atop a small Redstone tactical missile on a suborbital space flight that landed in the Atlantic Ocean 15 minutes later. Shepard thus became the first American in space. The flight had originally been scheduled for April of 1960, but was postponed multiple times, allowing Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin to get into space 3 weeks earlier on April the 12th. Birthdays the coming week. Today, Willie Nelson inexplicably turns 88 years old. Michelle Pfeiffer, the actress, turns 63 today. Frankie Valli turns 87 on Monday. Arnold George Dorsey, anybody? Engelbert Humperdinck turns 85 on Tuesday. And country singer Randy Travis turns 62 also on Tuesday. That's this week in history.
Thank you, Paul. Isn't that fun? I love this week in history.
Looking forward to next Thursday.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that. Sometimes I do put my foot where it belongs. Okay, Susan Campbell, I would like to ask you to give us an update on Jim and Bonnie, since they were your neighbors.
Yeah, well, a little hard, John and I live next door. Oh, thank you. John and I live next door. Lovely, sweet couple, played cards with them, and so I just You were invited, the Rotary Club, because Jim loved the Saturday, which is May 8th, out to East Lake Baptist Church, off of 346, and then, where they're gonna have a memorial for both of them, so, oh yeah, 11 o'clock. Sorry, that was the phone call I got here.
I'll type it out.
Thank you, Susan. I know we're all still in shock. But it's a lesson for a moment, because every moment you live is the last moment. And we have such a blessing. When I thank God, I say I can't count the blessings, Lord, but you know, the air we breathe, being born an American, being in Tyler, Texas, having all these friends and really wonderful people, and our health and our lives. So anyway, my heart is broken. I love Jim. He was very special. Okay. Who signed up for District Assembly Saturday? Raise your hand.
Allison, Pam.
Austin, okay. We're gonna take a car and have a blast Saturday morning in Longview at District Assembly. And if you haven't signed up, it's just about too late, so don't worry about that. Okay, we'll report on that next week. Does everybody know what's happening June the 5th, right here at Holly Tree?
Yes.
Woohoo! Jim is finally gonna get to lead us in the 100th celebration of this club. It's amazing, 100 years. I still can't believe it. It's gonna be a magnificent evening starting at 5:30 right here on June the 5th. Hopefully you've all got your tickets and are ready to come and have a wonderful evening of fellowship and food and fun, and a lot of historical data will be here that is really cool stuff. I'm telling you, we've got a storeroom, and Fran's been over there. Several of us have been over there and gone through a lot of this stuff, but it's really so cool because you don't think about it. You hear 100 years, but you don't think, wow, 100 years ago, this club was up and functioning, and wonderful people like you were supporting it. So anyway, okay, enough about that. Has everybody got who signed up for the centennial celebration? Raise your hands, come on. If you haven't done it so far, you need to do it now because we're gonna pack this place. 10th is coming to speak on his new book, and it will be a treat, just like it was last year. I mean, it's definitely gonna be a memorable day, so don't miss it. He's an outstanding speaker, so be sure to sign up for that. Next week, our program is going to be the Tyler Police Chief, Jimmy Toller, so that'll be exciting. I always like to hear law enforcement. They've got a wonderful take on stuff. And now, today.
Thank you, Pam. David Nichols was talking about retirement earlier, and my dad retired in 1999 to take care of my mother, who died in 2000. And in 2000, so I called him one day, and he was just worn out. I said, "Dad, why are you so tired all the time?" He said, "Well," he said, "here I am retired, and I got a pickup truck. People are calling me all the time saying, 'Ed, can you help me do this?' Or 'Ed, can you help me do that?'" And I said, "Well, Dad, what are you gonna do?" He said, "Son, I think I'm gonna have to get a full-time job just so I can get some rest." That's exactly what he said. Anyhow, our speaker today is Miss Smittee. She's with Leadership Tyler, which is a nonprofit organization formed in and it's for people to improve their professional skills. They educate their classes about the issues that affect our community, all while helping to develop their leadership skills. So here to tell us more about it is today's speaker. Please welcome Ms. Smittee.
Thank you so much for having me. I really am excited to tell you about Leadership Tyler. I tell everyone all the time I have best job in the entire community because I have an opportunity to interact with leaders throughout the community in every sector you can imagine on an almost daily basis. And that's a real treat, especially in our community. But before I tell you about leadership, Tyler, I wanted to share with you just a few things that I've learned this last year, because this is actually probably one of the biggest group, definitely a long time, that I've gotten to be in front of. So I'm very grateful to see you all in person. I have an amazing board of directors. We are a nonprofit, and they humor me quite a bit. This last week we had a board meeting. I have an amazing board of directors. We are a nonprofit, and they humor me quite a bit. This last week we had a board meeting, and one of the things that they humor me is I do a really ridiculous icebreaker, and I put someone on the spot and make them answer a really hard question. So I really loved my question this week, but I never get a chance to answer it. So I thought, well, I'm gonna answer it today. So this week I asked a couple of them, if you could be invisible for a day, what would you do?
Oh,
It's a good one, huh? I won't tell you their answers, but I thought about that question so much since I asked them, and I thought, if I were invisible for one day and I could pick a day, what would it be? It would probably be 20 years from now. I would want to go forward to 2040 and sit through a world history class and hear what they would say about this last year from their perspective.
yes.
Or maybe what my future great-great-grandchildren would say, how that would happen. So to start today, I want to share with you some leadership lessons, observations, things I've noticed over the last year going through leadership in a pandemic. Never has there been a greater test of leadership than this last year plus. So number one, leadership is hard, like real hard. This is sort of the lesson that I would tell my kids when they were playing games growing up. It's easy. It's when you're the loser that it's really hard, and how you behave yourself. The most important in telling about your character. Opportunities as leaders to lose and to fail, and what that looked like this year. So leadership is definitely hard. A second lesson is that I realized it's easy as a leader to become complacent. We found ourselves in the beginning having to adjust and adapt and realize what we were doing intentionally, and how we were looking at making things better. And that had really become a habit, and it is now. Organizations are talking about how do we become inventive or have backup plans before we need them. So I've definitely, I learned that people are resilient. There's a amount of them here in this community. Nonprofits, led by many of our alumni who are dependent on event fundraising, learn how to do things virtually. I watched kids learn at home and school districts adapt to bringing them back. I watched restaurants and small businesses figure out how to keep people employed and continue to serve their community in new and different ways. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the author Brené Brown. I'm a huge reader, and I think her work had really came to fruition this last year. One of my favorite quotes that she says is, "The courage to be vulnerable is not about winning or losing. It's about the courage to show up when you can't predict or control the outcome." It's a very timely quote. And I learned about the value of those that serve our community in their day-to-day work. I have one child still in public school, and thankfully, she was not dependent on me being an at-home teacher. But wow, our teachers are amazing and much more appreciated today probably than they were a year ago. The volunteers that fill the gaps throughout the community, the people that contribute, associations and clubs like you, are huge and very vital to this community. Choices and all of these are service to the people of this community, and I have a much deeper appreciation of them. And finally, and what I will lead into telling you about Leadership Tyler, and this was really not a lesson that I learned or anything I didn't already know, but we are part of a very amazing community. And it was really an opportunity to see that in motion. For those of you that haven't heard this already, I'm sure many of you have, Tyler is messing up what they call the Texas Triangle. So this area is the very best place to be going into the future. We talk a lot about that. We have a new medical school coming. This last week, the East Texas Communities Foundation supported 250 nonprofits, and in a 12-hour period, they raised over $2.7 million to support those nonprofits, and that's a lot of individual giving from a very generous community. And finally, I'll tell you, when kids ask me, what do you do? Like, what do you do during the day? You just know a lot of people. I do know a lot of people, and I am really not great at anything, to be honest with you. I'm an enthusiastic generalist. I love so many things in our community, and I'm mostly fascinated by the way that they intersect and how things work when people come together. Because it's those intersections that really kind of promote things. So Leadership Tyler provides me an opportunity to equip leaders throughout the community to go out and do good work. We don't do projects, we support the work that the community is already doing. We have 3 different programs. This is our middle of the 3 in terms of age. We have an executive leadership program that welcomes high-level executives and their spouses to the community in a very quick orientation style setting. We have a Catalyst 100 program. This is our newest program. It's in its 8th year. We have about 85 members. And this is a group of diverse leaders from throughout the community representing every sector you can imagine. We talk about, we have conversations about topics that are important in leading Tyler into the next 100 years. So we have an opportunity to create that forum and have those conversations. And then the program that probably most of you are most familiar with and are most well known is our core program, often called our flagship program. This is class 34, and they'll be finishing their experience on Monday and Tuesday of this coming week. And what we focus on as a board and as an organization is not so much the programs, but what happens after the programs. How do our graduates go on and impact the community, and how are they developed as leaders? So we ask them every year, and these are just, this is all included in that cute little brochure that some of you have at your tables. 92% of our alumni say that their community awareness was raised. They learned things they didn't know because community they wouldn't normally be a part of. We also focus on professional growth. How can we help you be a better leader for your businesses and the organizations that you lead? 39% of our alumni are promoted, 57% are given more responsibilities, and 61% are recognized for their professional growth. And then, most important, 97% are more confident, so they continue to. We also focus on personal growth, getting them involved with community programs, nonprofits, and volunteering and leading in a lot of different areas. And they're givers. 98% of our alumni give back on a consistent basis right here in the community. It takes a lot of support and community partnerships for us to complete our year. I'm the sole staff for us to complete our year. I'm the sole staff employee for Leadership Tyler. I have a tremendous network of volunteers and a tremendous number of corporate sponsors and partners that host us, give us money to continue to do what we do. And this is the group that supported us this year. So this is where being an enthusiastic generalist really comes in handy. These are all of the different areas that we talk about in any given our business and economy, healthcare, education. So we get to do a deep dive into each one of these areas in a given year. And we are right in the middle of our application process for our core program for this year. It's a very competitive program. We always have more applicants than we do seats in the program. So I would love your help encouraging anyone that you know might be a great candidate. And I'm just going to zip through some quick information, but I would love any questions that you have. How many of you, just by show of hands, are alumni of our core program? That counts. That counts. You ask my husband, he hears about every day, every time I come home, so definitely. Okay, we have over 900 of our core program on, this is class, we're going into class 35. We take about 30 to 35 participants every year. This year we took 20 to meet in person. We start with an opening retreat, an overnight retreat. It's very awkward to spend the night with adults. It's very awkward. Cell service is terrible, which is wonderful. And Austin went through this not very long ago, so I'm sure he can help fill you in. We meet once a month for a full day session where we do a deep dive into one of those areas in the community. And then what Class 34 will experience next week, we do an overnight closing retreat where it's much better by the end. They've spent 9 months together as a group and they like each other a lot by that time. They're a lot more comfortable anyway. And we run it kind of like a program. We ask them to participate and be there for every session. I know I've heard that some of the attendance requirements are less for Rotary now. Is that true? Really long time, and we're still holding on to it too. We require our people to be there because it's a continual process. It's about building relationships, and everything connects in one way or the other. Community doesn't happen in silos, so it's important for them to be there. We also have a financial commitment. Our application, fortunately, is all online. At this point, that was pre-COVID, so it happened a while back, but we do have an application fee, and then our tuition for our program is $1,950 annually. We require that the participant pay $150 of that personally. We were one of the participating nonprofits for East Texas Giving Day, and we used any funds raised that day for scholarships. I have kind of peer programs across the country, and we are one of the lowest tuition rates of the country. And our goal is to be able to have the program available to people who want to be involved, and we offset that with support from our corporate sponsors. So this is just what our application process looks like. It takes over 600 volunteer hours from our alumni to select the 30 or 35 people. We take it really seriously. It's a very objective process, and that's how we get the great group of people. They will go through essays and interviews, and then we announce our class mid-August. Finally, in early September, or actually mid-September this year, we will host a community-wide luncheon, and you are all invited. This year it will be September 21st. We bring in a keynote speaker, our speaker, Qualman. He's a nationally best-selling author and an expert in a field called digital leadership. It would have been very helpful to have had him a couple years ago. He will be very entertaining and very fun, and it will also be an opportunity for you to meet whoever is part of Class 35. I want to have some time for questions. I want to end with a final. Our Leadership Live, that's our community-wide event, that's what we call it, we had to do that virtually this year. I don't know how many of you attended virtual events, but they were not the same. They were not the same at all. But we did our very best, and we did that event virtually. So that's where this comes from. But one of the final lessons that I learned is that great leaders don't say, they, them, or you. They say us, we, and me. And that has really been seen, in my view, over and over this year. When we did our fall kickoff, we had the help of Local Arts Academy, which is TISD's magnet program downtown. They helped perform a poem or an excerpt of a speech from Theodore Roosevelt that I'm sure you've all heard at one time or another. But it was so fitting, and I thought I would end today with that because it's very applicable to the type of leaders that we hope come out of our program and go on to do amazing things in the community. It's really just the beginning. You have to be the launch point for bigger and better things. It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause. The best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who, at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. That is how we kicked off the kind of charge at the beginning of that this year has just been a beginning for them in their service and their contributions back to making Tyler great. They're certainly following in the steps of amazing leaders, many of who are in this room, and that's how we hope they feel the weight of that. I tell you, the kids did a much better job of reading that. So if you get a chance, it's on YouTube. We shared it out there, and they've got a lot of talent coming out of that elementary. I would love to answer any questions that any of you might have.
What is the criteria that you use to select your applicants, and also how many applicants do you typically have per session at work?
That's a great question. What's the criteria that we use to select, and how many do we actually take into our class? This year we chose intentionally a smaller class, so there were 20. This coming year we are looking at about 30 or 32, and that's also very intentional. We depend tremendously on host venues throughout the community. We try not to keep them in a room like this, but really get out there and see the things that are going on, and so that number works best. The requirements, we are looking for, it's very intense, where we have a lot of well thought out interview questions that tie back to all these behaviors, but the big answer is we're looking for someone who's a learner, motivator, and an inspirer, and they have capacity to grow in all of those areas. That's the broad answer.
How many applicants?
But that's a great question. And also a top secret answer. We always have more applicants than we have seats, but we have never in the history of the program announced the number of applicants that we have. And there's a great reason for that. We don't want to hinder people applying either way.
Are there age requirements on how old somebody has to be, or?
No, the age requirements, absolutely not. We have applicants from 18 to 72. And that's just what we've had so far.
Show of hands, who's that?
There are programs in the country that separate by age. I personally am not a fan of that yet. We may evolve to that, but there is a lot of value of having a big mixture. They were at a point in their career where they were very vulnerable and open to talking about failure, and they weren't trying to build their resume, and that was hugely impactful to people starting out their career. But it works the other way too. You know, these gentlemen were able to hear from this young group who were engaged, who wanted to be involved, who had great ideas, and so it's a really neat combination. I would love for any of you to participate.
Great question. Anything else? Okay.
Smitty, that was wonderful. I have about 100 more questions, but I don't want to keep you up here all day. So I think this probably begs a program by Austin Luce on his experiences in leadership, Tyler, because I think that would be so interesting to understand exactly what all you went through. You got 5 or
I don't know if I'll take up that much time, but it really was a great experience. I mean, other than Rotary Club, of course. It's, one of the best organizations I've been part of here in Tyler. And you just meet so many really great people who are involved in all different areas. And you just learn so much about the community. You learn about different needs that are in the community that you may not realize. You learn about different organizations that are helping and different ways to just get involved and make the community a better place. And it's also just, just a ton of fun. And it just flies by so quickly. It's a 9-month program, but I would apply and go through it again if I was able to, but I don't think that's allowed. So I would encourage anyone who has interest in it to apply because it really is a fantastic organization. It wasn't too bad. I'm a sure, so I don't know if my roommates enjoyed it as much as I did. But yeah, I just popped in those earplugs. Yeah.
I'm curious about the time that you spent together the first weekend. I mean, was there an agenda where, you had like the day filled up, or was it just pretty open? And I was going to ask Smittee that, but then I thought, well, I'd ask you.
It's a pretty full agenda. We have some different, and I don't know if it's top secret or not. But, we do some personality kind of assessments prior to going to it, and Brian Brandt with Core Insights, came and spoke to us and different personality types, and kind of learned about the other people within our group. Some different sessions, we had some free time that was built into it, but it's just a really nice time to kind of get to know each other.
Yeah, nice. Awesome. Thanks, Austin. I think that would be a fabulous experience for anyone that's interested in learning more about the community and learning more about being a leader. It's not easy being a leader. It was one of the hardest things that I ever stepped into because the only person I ever had to lead was myself. And when I started having employees, it was a huge learning curve to lead other people and be the right example for them and to teach them to lead. So I didn't have to work all the time. And so I really appreciate leadership, Tyler, and I know that the opportunities that are given to the people in the core class, I don't know much about the other two, but I know that those opportunities are tremendous, and I know that the people come out a better person. And we know that just because we have an example right here with Austin Luce. Okay, how much money do we have? We're getting on up there. Smitty, would you draw a ticket for us, please? And read the last 4 numbers? I forget something?
No, well.
Oh, yeah. Smitty, wait, before you read that, I forgot to give you your certificate. I'm so sorry. I was so smitten with your program, Smitty. We make a donation to the Literacy Council on your behalf. And so maybe you'll frame that and hang in your office and tell everybody what a great group we were and how we appreciated you.
Yay! Brittany Patterson is also an alumni of our program, so we love Literacy Council.
Okay, awesome. That's good to know. Okay.
9361.
9361. Come on down. Woo, Mike Kavanaugh. Yay! Do it. Lisa and I just knew we were gonna win today. Say again.
Good job, Mike.
And I have been very tardy today. I have 2 sympathy cards up here today for one for Jim and Bonnie and one for Holly Hendricks. I forgot to announce her mother passed away yesterday morning. And so she had been ill, but Gayla Hendricks was a friend of mine. And I've known her for many decades, and she was very special. She was one of the kindest hearted people I've ever known, and she was really easy to be friends with, and I'm very sad because it's a loss. So if y'all will hurriedly sign these cards, and you can't leave till you sign the card, but while you're doing that, if you'll stand and join me in the 4 truths of the things we think, say, and do. First, is it the truth? Second,
Is it
it's
fair
for all concerned. Third,
Will it build goodwill and better friendships?
and finally, will it be beneficial to all concerned? We're adjourned. But you still have to sign the cards.